ask me all the time, "Hey Brian, do you really use that keto elevate stuff, and does it really work?" The answer is yes and yes. Never in my entire life have I lost body fat so quickly. Not even in my prime at 25, which is over 25 years ago. I'm approaching 54 this year. If you want to support the channel and do your health a favor, grab some with my link in the description. I just want to show you a couple, I don't know, maybe we might make it all the way through this CNN video here. The name of this is US and Europe target Russian billionaires' yachts. I got a problem with that, and I'll tell you why in a second.
New efforts by U.S. law enforcement to make Russian oligarchs feel the pain of Putin's war. The Justice Department announced a special klepto-capture task force.
Feel the pain of Putin's war. They don't care. Mainstream media doesn't care. The military-industrial complex doesn't care. The people in power in Washington's District of Criminals don't care. And I'll show you in a second why I know for a fact that they don't care. It's like, oh, you're going to inflict damages on Ukraine, Russia? Well, you're going to pay mightily. We're going to freeze your bank accounts, commandeer your yachts, engage in all kinds of activity of civil asset forfeiture against the Russian oligarchs. I'll show you why they don't care. Because if you're just to keep apples and oranges and make a straight across the board comparison, they don't treat other nations who devastate other nations like this. What about what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen, starving those people out? Are there any sanctions being placed against Saudi Arabia? No. Why? Oil? I don't know. Listen to what they say here. It's not the same across the board.
Targeting Russian yachts, jets, real estate. France is already taking action, seizing one oligarch's yacht docked on the French Riviera. CNN chief business correspondent Christine Roman's here with the details on this.
Yeah, this is what they're doing, John. They're going to target yachts, real estate, and ill-gotten riches of Putin's inner circle, the oligarchs with wealth parked around the world. Prosecutors and federal agents working with experts in money laundering, tax enforcement, national security, all to target Russia's tycoons.
Ill-gotten gains from the oligarchs. Money laundering. Do you really think that the CIA and the FBI and the DEA in Washington, D.C. isn't engaged in money laundering? Do you really think that they're not engaged in corrupt activities where they actually fund the military-industrial complex, fund the defense contractors, steal the tax cattle wealth to go make war in other nations where everybody else, all these oligarchs, they can buy yachts and they can get properties and they can afford jets? How come nobody's freezing their accounts? How come nobody's frozen Cheney's account? How about George W? How about George W.'s account? We all know he's a war criminal. What about going after him? How come you're not freezing his accounts, shutting down his library?
We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for you, ill-begotten gain.
Ill-begotten gain.
With our allies, a vice grip tightening around Russia.
We got to watch ill-begotten gain.
Coming for you, ill-begotten gain.
With our allies, a vice grip tightening around Russia's oligarchs. $39 billion of their wealth has evaporated since the Russian stock market collapsed. That stock market, by the way, still closed since last week, closed again today. The Russian ruble is cratering. It's worth less than a penny. They can't move money out of Russia. Capital controls now. The government prohibiting transfers of more than 10 grand. And sanctions have frozen the Western assets of those closest to Putin. Sanctions are crippling the Russian economy, and Russia's billionaires control roughly 30% of the wealth within Russia. Get this. That's double the share of billionaires in the U.S. But they also have significant wealth stashed overseas in offshore accounts, luxury homes, yachts, sports teams. That's what
this is setting a horrible, horrible precedent, guys. If you have Americans, brain dead, boobus Americanas looking at their TV going, yeah, you should freeze the accounts of the Russian oligarchs. By the way, what's an oligarch? I've never heard that term before. Yeah, go after him. You're basically saying, yeah, go after the rest of us. Go after the rest of us too. You are giving the monopoly, a globalized monopoly of force and power to NATO forces to go after whoever they want to go after, anytime they want to go after them. And yeah, somebody said in the room, selective enforcement. That's exactly what it is. Selective enforcement. What are they enraged about? What do they want? What do they want the Russian oligarchs to stop doing? Why are they so infuriated that they're going into Ukraine and bombing apartment complexes and harming children and hurting civilians and citizens? Why is this lady right here? Why does she still have an unfrozen bank account? Why can she still go out in the light of day and receive no condemnation from the entire world? And why isn't her face placed on the world stage as an evil villain? Let me play this for you, okay? And then we'll come back to the CNN video. But this is a point that everyone needs to see. There is selective enforcement. What if the people under NATO, which we're one of those nations, what if the people of NATO are really the bad guys? What if there is no good guy in this? What if Putin's a very evil bad guy? What if Zelensky's evil? And what if all of the United Nations and NATO and all the allied forces, what if they're all doing the same thing? And what if they're all trying to herd us into this one little funnel to bring us into this digital ID system? What if that's the case? What if that's what's going on? Freezing bank accounts. We already have, we'll go over this in a later segment. Maybe I'll make a different video on it. But we already have cryptocurrency wallets being frozen by the Canadian government just because they use their cryptocurrency to fund the trucker convoy. Listen to the words of this lady. Listen to what she admits to.
We have heard.
By the way, before I get started, this right here is Madeleine Albright. She served as the Secretary of State under Clinton. I think the years were like 1997 to 2000 or 2001. But she served under Clinton. Listen to what she admits to here, guys.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
What price? The price of 500,000 children was worth going into Iraq and just bombing everything into oblivion. But I'll tell you this, the hairdresser for Madeleine Albright did a fantastic job filing down her horns, because you can't even tell. You can't even tell she's got horns. Is there a better definition? Is there a better depiction? Is there a better image of evil than this right here? But are they engaging any civil asset forfeiture in somebody like this who admitted to killing 500,000 children? They can actually get away with it, but they're going to go after Putin. They're gonna go on the news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with this huge propaganda cycle and try to tell you, hey, we're the good guys. We're the good guys. Putin is the bad guy. You need to do everything you can to wear your little pin for Ukraine and support actor/comedian Zelensky. But don't pay any attention to what we did. Sure, we blew 500,000 children to smithereens, but hey, it was worth it. And they're going to go after Russia? Unbelievable.
The West plans to target and confiscate. There are already reports of yachts.
Why aren't they on the news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week saying we need to continue to go after Madeleine Albright. We need to continue to publicly, globally shame her. She needs to be in jail and all her assets need to be liquidated. And not just Albright. And guys, it's not just 500,000 kids. It's way more. Look at that's why I put this, look at this right here. Pretending to cry for American kids while bombing children in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Libya, Somalia, Yemen, and Syria. It's all a show. It's all a game. It's all politics, the clever and deceptive art of using euphemisms, lies, emotionalism, and fear-mongering in order to dupe average people into accepting and even demanding the chains of their own enslavement while they try to show that they're human. Well, that's a politician's job, to pretend to care about something other than power and profit precisely to gain more of each. It's a show for these people. How can you shed a tear for a dying child or 313 dying children in Ukraine when you've already bombed into oblivion 1.5 million of them over the last 30 years from 1991 to 2021? And under false pretenses. Yeah, look at this right here. Bush just recently said that he's condemning Russia's war on Ukraine as unjustified invasion. George W. Bush is condemning Russia for an unjustified invasion. Is there anything more ironic and repulsive and disgusting?
Being seized in Germany. We can confirm that yacht seized in France. Even so, it's going to be challenging here. Oligarchs have spent 3 decades amassing these fortunes and hiding them by putting ownership under the...
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, how about the United States oligarchs? What kind of fortunes are they amassing? What are their names? We know some of them. Weapons of mass destruction. We need to go over there. And then during that little, roast dinner that the White House, press dinner or whatever, George W. Bush going, well, there were no weapons of mass destruction over there. Ha ha, no weapons of mass destruction over there. But we sure did kill a whole lot of people and rip off a whole bunch of Americans to fortify the war machine.
Friend of a friend, shell companies are maneuvering to distance themselves from their big assets. Not on a sanctions list, Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, owner of the Chelsea Football Club. He transferred stewardship of that team, he said, to the club's charitable foundation. And now, John, announces that he plans to sell it.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And he says he's going to give the proceeds to the Ukrainians.
So the proceeds would be huge. He bought that club, I think, early 2000s for something like $187 million. There have been offers as high as $3 billion for that club. So imagine how much money that is. Would he really give it to the Ukrainian victims of the Ukrainian conflict? We'll have to wait and see.
The other thing is, when you're talking about seizing yachts, it sounds complicated, but if it's in your port, you can just go do it, right?
That's right, and it takes a lot of people.
If somebody else's ship is in your port, you can just go take it, right? You can just go ahead and steal property that's not yours, right? Come on, let's go ahead and do it. That's what CNN and MSLSD and even Fox News is jumping on the bandwagon of just, hey, let's just seize their assets. Guys, this remember what happened with the trucker convoy? Anybody who's just giving to Give, Send, Go or giving to GoFundMe, they were being economically terrorized. Maybe they didn't even go to the trucker convoy. Maybe they didn't even make their way to Ottawa. Maybe they weren't even in the region, but there's a paper trail. We saw that you gave to them. Therefore, we're going to go economically devastate you and your family because you had wrongthink. You were on the side that we told you not to be on, and we're going to economically terrorize you with sanctions. This is flinging the door open so wide.
Well, actually, I mean, how many people are on those super yachts? One question I have, if you're looking at sanctions, can you even employ a captain to move a ship like that, right? Because that person would be violating sanctions against. So it's all very fascinating. And this is what this team at the Justice Department is going to go after. Anybody who violates any letter of these sanctions, your stuff will be gone.
Anybody who violates any letter of these sanctions, and a sanction, people do not like to talk about this, but a sanction is an article of war. So, yeah, just go ahead, keep poking the bear, keep backing Putin in the corner. And I'm not saying that this isn't a big stage show, because to me it looks like there is when you got Vladimir Putin shaking hands with World Economic Forum leader Klaus Schwab, and you got Trudeau doing the same thing, and Biden and Trump, and pretty much everybody under the sun. The Ukrainian president Vladimir Zelensky, they're all shaking hands with the World Economic Great Reset Forum, Fourth Industrial Revolution Klaus Schwab, who wants to bring the digital ID on board and marry biology with technology. They're all in bed together. So this may be sacrificing a pawn for a rook or something. I don't know what the whole big scheme and chessboard thing is. It's probably a concerted effort of all governments to get us all under a huge umbrella of global governance.
Ideas hit the oligarchs where it hurts, and by doing that, you're hitting Putin where it hurts,
right,
because he depends on those oligarchs. Christine Romans, thank you.
Got to have that fall guy. Got to have that fall guy. And the Putin is the evil man. Oh, Obama wasn't. Trump wasn't. George H.W., they weren't.